So let's continue on from Daniel. Yeah, Daniel chapter 9 and verse 25. So, coming to the 70 weeks again. Yes. Says in 9:25, know therefore and understand from the going forth of the commandment to restore and build Jerusalem until the Messiah, the Prince, will be 63. 62. So, total 69 weeks of years. Okay, so we said that the command to build the city of Jerusalem went forth from King Artaxerxes on the 14th of March 445 BC. 14th of March 445 BC, the command to build. We got this from which book? Nehemiah, not Ezra. Nehemiah. The 14th of March. 14th of March 445 BC. From this date to Messiah the Prince would be a gap of 69 weeks of years. 69 weeks of years. Now I have to come around and show you how the 69 weeks is broken up for us into two segments. Okay. Let me show you this. First you have 445 BC, and this is the coming of Jesus. 7 and 69. And you have a whole gap. So if 7 and 69, 7 and 62 make 69, you have a gap and then you have this last week here. Okay, everybody? So the issuing of the decree to rebuild Jerusalem until the anointed one, the ruler, comes, there will be 7 sevens and 62 sevens. 7 sevens and 62 sevens. So 69 weeks. So why is there this division? Why is there this division? First of all, it is a matter of accuracy. The first 7 weeks of years would be 49 years. Okay, this is important. You remember there's a division of 7, 6 and 62, right? Then there's a gap, and then there's the last 7. Okay, so the first 7 weeks of years would be 49 years. This refers to the remainder of the Medo-Persian rule, because we understand that it is under the Medo-Persian rule that the command was given to what? The command was given to? Please be loud, don't mutter. Please be clear. What are you saying? Rebuild the temple and the city. So, but the remainder of their time is 49 years. Then the next segment, 62 weeks of years. So, we said 49 years is the remainder of the time under Medo-Persian rule. The next segment, 62 weeks of years, is 434 years. This demarcated the extent of the Roman rule. The next segment of 62 years or 462 weeks of years. 62 weeks of years equals 434 years. This marks for us the extent of the Roman rule. So 49 years, the remainder of the Medo-Persian rule. 434 years, the extent of the Roman rule. And the time gap between the issuing of the commandment to rebuild Jerusalem and the coming of the Messiah, the time gap is 483 years. 483 years. Late. Break is for 15 minutes. Break is for 15 minutes. Mustn't be late. So, the rebuilding of the city of Jerusalem that was recorded in Nehemiah had a lot of trouble, it had a lot of resistance. So, we read at the end of verse 25, the street shall be built again and the wall, even in troubled times. Even in troubled times. We read of Nehemiah having trouble from certain people, just like we have trouble here from people from outside. You have Sanballats and Tobias working in BBC also. Okay, who will be judged by God? Most definitely. And if you are on their side, you will also be judged by God. I want to remind you, whoever it is. Okay, if you resist the work of God and you side with people who resist the work of God, you incur the wrath and the judgment of God. But God's work will go on. The wall will be built again and God's plans and purposes will be fulfilled. So, there was troubled times, as it says here. We read at the end of verse 25 that there were troubled times, and you read of that, those troubled times in the book of Nehemiah and in Ezra. Okay, so this gap and this division of the years is important for us to note. Again, let's just recap once. So you have 7 years, 7 weeks of years. Yes? Nobody? Just the wind. Seven weeks of years. Let's be clear in our minds what this means. 7 weeks of years refers to 49. 49 years belong to Medo-Persian rule. After the Medo-Persian rule, then the 62 weeks of years or 434 years refers to Roman rule. The time gap between the issuing of the commandment and Messiah the Prince would be 483 years. Now, that leaves how many years? 483 total. 42
Some more years.
Huh?
Some more years.
No, add up 434 and 49. How much do you get? 83. That leaves how many? How many years are remaining in 490? 7. So, those 7 years are yet to come. Those 7 years are in the future. They are not yet, it has not yet happened. All of this happened 483 years from the issuing of the come on, from the issuing of the commandment to, come on, yes, please be clear, the issuing of the commandment to what? No, be specific, not the temple. What does the Bible say? Huh? The city of Paris, city of London, city of Jerusalem. Restore and build. The command was given on what date?
March 14th, 445.
By who? Which king gave the command? Artaxerxes. We read this in Nehemiah chapter 2. Okay, so from the 14th of March 445 BC until the coming of the Messiah, how many years? How many weeks of years? Tell me first. 69. 69 weeks of years equals how many actual years?
483.
Yes, 483 years from the issuing of the commandment all the way till the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. Okay, then there is a big gap. We are currently in that gap. Now, once that gap is fulfilled, you will have
7 years.
7 years, 1 week of years. 1 week of years is equal to how many years? Actual years? 7. Okay, now we are on track. Good. So that is what he is explaining to Daniel here. Now, the coming of Messiah the Prince. What does that refer to? The coming of Messiah the Prince refers to, obviously, what does it refer to? No, not the rapture. What is the coming of Messiah the Prince? When he was born, when Jesus was he born as a prince? Not at all. How was he born? He was born? Say it, man, Sundar. Huh? Human form, but
Son of carpenter.
how was his birth? What circumstances was Jesus born under?
In a man.
Yes, he was born in humble circumstances, not as a prince, right? Was he born as a prince? No. But when he entered Jerusalem, how did he enter Jerusalem? No. The entry of Christ into Jerusalem was what? On a?
Donkey.
What was that to signify?
It's a king.
Okay, please read. Somebody read 1 Kings chapter 1. 1 Kings chapter 1. First Kings chapter 1 and verse 32 onwards. First Kings chapter 1 verse 32 to 36. And King David said, "Call me Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet and Benaiah the son of Jehoiada." And they came before the king. The king also said to them, Take with you the servants of your Lord, and cause Solomon my son to ride upon my own donkey, and bring him down to Gihon. And let Zadok the priest and Nathan the prophet anoint him there king over Israel, and blow the trumpet, and say, God save King Solomon. Then you shall come up after him, that he may come and sit upon my throne, for he shall be king in my stead, and I have appointed him to be ruler over Israel and over Judah. So here we see King Solomon, what does he ride upon? A mule, a donkey. In ancient Near Eastern custom, especially in the Jewish custom, the coming of the prince or the king was not on a horse. The symbol was a donkey. Now somebody else please read Zechariah 9:9. Zechariah 9:9, please.
Rejoice greatly, O daughters of Zion. Shout, O daughters of Jerusalem. Behold, your king is coming to you. He is just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a clod and foal of a donkey.
Okay, so when Jesus rode into Jerusalem on the foal of a donkey, he was identifying himself as what?
King.
Messiah the Prince. Both Messiah, anointed one. What does Messiah mean? Anointed one. And the Prince, the ruler. Now this riding in of Jesus into Jerusalem on the foal of a donkey has a definite date, a real date. It is the 10th of Nisan. Now, the 10th of Nisan is the 6th of April, 32 AD. 6th of April 32 AD, Jesus came riding into Jerusalem. Now, we said that the issue of the edict to rebuild Jerusalem happened on what date? Which? 14th March. But in the Jewish calendar, it was the 1st of Nisan. 1st of Nisan, 14th March, and the 10th of Nisan, 6th of April, 32 AD. Okay, this fulfills, once again I'll say it, 14th of March, 445 BC, up till the 6th of April, 32 AD, fulfills 483 years. But there is a problem. Can you tell me what is the problem? There is a difference between the Jewish calendar and the Roman calendar. Jewish calendar has 360 days in it. Roman calendar has how many days? 365. So there is a difference here. We are not calculating things according to the Roman calendar. We are calculating things according to the Jewish calendar. Okay, so it is 365 versus 360. So if you use the 360 days per year and actually count the exact number of days and years, then it will fit with this timeline that is given to us in Daniel. Okay, once again I will say it. 14th of March 445 BC. 14th of March 445 BC, which is the 1st of Nisan, all the way up till the 6th of April 32 AD, which is the 10th of Nisan. Exactly 483 years are fulfilled. It's amazing accuracy. Amazing accuracy that we see here. Okay, after these 62 weeks, we read, after the second segment, right? We said 40. First, there is a week of years, 7 years. Then there is 62 weeks. It says, what does it say? Please read in verse 26. After 62 weeks, Messiah shall be cut off. Cut off. What does this mean?
Crucified.
He is crucified. It seems like he is helpless. It seems like he has no power. He will be cut off. Okay, and we read this in the New Testament. Indeed, he had nothing. Jesus, in his weakest hour, okay, what did he do? Jesus, in his weakest hour, he gave himself to, he committed himself to the Lord, to his Father. In his weakest hour, what did Jesus say when he was on the cross?
He prayed to the Father.
Hmm?
He prayed to the Father
Yes, and what did he say?
and submitting my soul.
Hmm?
I capitulate.
Father,
Forgive me.
into thy hands I commend.
I am committing my spirit
Yes.
and rest.
So he was weakened, he was cut off, and then it says that the people of the prince that shall come shall destroy the city. Okay, the people of the prince that shall destroy the city. Remember, we talked about time gaps in prophecy? Remember, we talked about time gaps in prophecy? Do you remember that or no? Time gaps in prophecy. What is the illustration we use to talk about time gaps in prophecy? Time gaps in prophecy. We used an illustration. Ah, you are shaking your head. What is that? What is the time gaps in prophecy? What is the illustration we used?
Mountain.
Yeah, mountains, exactly. Remember this? Remember this picture? Can you see? Remember this picture? Right? Mountains, there are time gaps in prophecy. If you read everything, remember this picture? If you read everything right from the front, it appears as if everything is one after the other. But actually, if you view it laterally from the side, you see that there are gaps in the prophecy. So there is a gap here as well. There is a gap right here in Daniel 9:26. There is a gap in time between Messiah being cut off and the prince who will come and destroy the city. Verse 26, after 62 weeks Messiah will be cut off and not by himself, and the people of the prince that will come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. Okay, there is a gap in time. How much of time gap is there? Jesus was crucified in 32 or 33 AD. Now, do you know about the destruction of the city of Jerusalem after Jesus died? Was the city of Jerusalem destroyed? By who?
Roman.
By Romans. Which year?
78.
70 AD. So, what is the time gap? Very easy math. 37 years. There's 37 years of a time gap. Messiah is cut off, and then the people of the prince who will come. This is a short gap in prophecy that we read of. Okay, the people of the prince here are the Romans, and what did they do? Please read 26. They will come and destroy the city and the sanctuary. So they indeed destroyed the city of Jerusalem, and they burned the entire temple to the ground. Okay, and then he says, and the end of it will be with a flood, and unto the end of the war desolations are determined. Now, what does flood mean? Flood here doesn't mean a little flood of water. It's being used figuratively. But the city was left desolate. Please look into the text. Please look into the text. Pay attention, please. You hearing what I'm saying? What did I just say? What did I just say? What did I say? But what did I say before that? Flood. What is flood? Is it literal? Is the literal flood?
No.
Is it Noah's flood being talked about here? What flood is being talked about here? It's figurative. Okay, so the flood is figurative, the city is left desolate, and we read about here who is this prince who is going to come and destroy the city? Who is this prince? So we read about Messiah the prince in 25, Messiah the prince. Then we read about the prince that will come. Are these two the same princes? That's a question for you. Messiah the prince and the prince who will come, are they the same?
No.
No, okay, they're not. They're two different people. The prince to come refers to the prince who will come refers to the little horn of Daniel chapter 7, the Antichrist, where we read of in the last half of 7:25. Somebody please read chapter 7 verse 25.
He shall speak pompous words against the Most High, shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change time and law. Then the same shall be given into his hands for the time and a half a time.
Yeah. So we read of here the prince who will come. Okay, the people of the prince are the Romans. Okay, the people of the prince are the Romans, and these Romans existed in history past. But the prince who is to come is in the future. The prince who is to come will come out of the Roman Confederacy. Remember, we read of the 10 horns. There will be 10 kings who join, and they will have a Roman European Confederacy. And this little horn, this prince to come, will come out of that European Roman Confederacy. Okay? So are we clear so far? Is there any doubt? Please be honest. If you have a doubt, let me know. Any doubts before we move forward? Please ask your questions and ask your doubts before we move forward. Did you understand what we just read up to the end of verse 26? We are going through Daniel chapter 9 verses plural.
24 to 27.
Yeah, 24 to 27. Just now we completed up till the end of 26. Have you understood everything? Yeah, if you don't understand, don't laugh, just ask questions. Laughing doesn't help the cause. You're not here to laugh, you ask questions if you don't understand. Doubts, questions? Please. Please ask your doubts and questions. This will be the time to clarify. Okay? If not, let's move on. All right. So that you all understood everything in one class itself. You're very great. Okay. Now we move on to the next. Now again, let's look at this. Just to recap everything. What is the timeline? What does it look like? This 70 weeks, we said that it is a historical time frame. What does this 70 weeks actually look like? Okay. So 70 weeks are divided into 3 segments of 7, 62 and 1. And in between 69 and 1 there is an unknown period of time. Okay, we are in that unknown period of time. After understand this, after this unknown period of time that we saw, then the actions of verse 27 start. Verse 27, and he will confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. 1 week of years. 7 years. He of 27 refers to the prince who will come. Okay? And the prince who will come is the little horn. Okay? So the last segment of 70 weeks of years is 1 week or 7 years long. This is the first time we are given the specific time period of the 7 years of tribulation, which will be talked about in Revelation. Okay, the 7 years of tribulation. So in 725, the same period is described as a time and times. In chapter 7 and verse 25, the same period is referred to as a time and times and the dividing of the time. So this describes the dividing of these 7 years into 2 periods, into 2 halves. At the beginning of the 7-year period, the Antichrist will make a covenant or an agreement with many. It says, who are the many being talked about? Who are the many being talked about? He will make a covenant, he will make an agreement with who? What does it say in the text? Verse 27, he will make an agreement or a covenant with many. Who are the many? Who are the many? No, say. Jews. Where do you read that? How do you know it's Jews? Because of what verse? What verse do you know it's the Jews? From which verse here do you know that it's the Jews?
It's all about Jerusalem.
No, correct. We know that. But from which verse? How can you connect many with Jerusalem or with the Jews? How do you know it is for the Jews? Because of what the angel says, Gabriel says to Daniel in verse 24, 70 weeks are determined upon your people. So the many are the Jews. Okay? So he makes this covenant with the Jews and he makes it with, notice, many, not all. This covenant is made with many of the Jews, the majority of them, not all of them. So there will be some people among the Jews in those end times who do not come into this covenant with the Antichrist. Okay, what is this covenant? What are the contents of this covenant or this agreement that will be made? What are the contents of this agreement or this covenant? Look at the next part of the verse. It is implied in the next part of the verse. In the middle of the week, he will cause the sacrifices to cease. So that means the covenant will be about sacrifices, about the resumption of sacrifices. So this Antichrist figure will come onto the scene and he will tell the Jews that I am going to cause the sacrifices that have been stopped for so many years, I am going to cause them to what? To come back. I will restore your sacrificial system. That's why they trust him. They will trust him because he promises them to restore the sacrificial system. But then the covenant that is made for 7 years, in the middle of the 7 years, he breaks that covenant. You understand, right? Why do the Jews trust him? Because he makes a covenant with them saying, I will restore your sacrifice system, your temple worship. That's what this covenant is about, the resumption of sacrifices and temple worship. It's a promise at the beginning that he makes. His rise to power is based on this promise that he makes. And the first, please.
Jerusalem was a God for the covenant with many from our nations.
Yes.
Many, just to mention, many as only for Jews.
The Jews, yes, because,
And Matthew chapter 20, 26 and 28 verse, it says that for this is my blood for the new covenant which is shed for many of the remission of sins. Many for means it's only for Jews or
No, there it's a different context. There again it doesn't say for all. Correct. It's a good parallel that you've drawn. Very nice. So here it says he will confirm the covenant for many, with many. Not all the Jews are fooled. Only some of the Jews are fooled by the Antichrist. There what you're reading about Jesus' sacrifice, the new covenant, there again he says, this is my covenant for many. But it is not for the whole world. It is for who are the many there in that context? Those who believe in Jesus. It doesn't mean that his sacrifice is for everybody, because there are some who at the end will be proven not to have ever believed in Jesus. So his covenant, his sacrifice is for all those who will believe in him. But the covenant of the Antichrist is different, two different covenants. Okay?
Why Jews will believe this Antichrist? Why they will give that much opportunity or privilege to?
That's a very good question. Because he promises them the restoration of something that was stopped for centuries, namely temple worship and sacrifice. He promises, I am going to bring it back for you. So they believe him. And he does bring it back. He makes an agreement with them for 7 years and he brings back temple worship and animal sacrifice. So they believe him because he's actually doing something for them, visibly.
Says Antichrist out of Jews only, sir, is it from?
No, we said no. Where does he arrive? He arises out of where? Rome. Roman European Confederacy. So he's not out of the Jews, not one out of the Jews. But he does fool the Jews.
Because the Jewish tendency is like the one among themselves they believe them the most. So
Not necessarily.
Actually, Jews believe some Jews, that's what his question.
No, here it is very clear that the Antichrist, from all that we've read, Daniel 7 and here, that he arises out of one out of the 10 horns.
Why he is asking means in the Revelation class, Mr. Ganesh said about that one, that 3 of 5 false prophet, red dragon, and Antichrist. Among them, the false prophet is most probably from Jews, he appointed. So Jews believe Jews because of that Antichrist will rule, and he made an agreement or covenant with these people like that it went on. That's why he is being pushed now.
It's very possible, but see, the Jews, if you read all of scripture, it's not always that Jews believe Jews. Jews also believe quite a few others, right? Didn't Nehemiah believe in Cyrus? And in Artaxerxes, Ezra and Nehemiah trusted them. They're not Jewish. They trusted them. So they just want to see their own customs and traditions restored. And this person is promising that he'll do it. So they believe. That's a good question. So he makes this promise and this covenant, and he comes to power. All devout Jews are waiting for the sacrificial system and the temple worship to resume. When was it stopped? temple worship and the sacrificial system, when did it stop?
When the temple was destroyed,
In
70.
70 AD. So since then, they have been waiting for the resumption of temple worship and the sacrificial system. So they're eagerly waiting, and so since he comes into power and promises this, they trust him. Now, actually, if you look at current world history, the last few decades, the Jews have been preparing for what? To build the temple, to have the perfect sacrifice ready. They have even done a lot of genetic studies to come up with the perfect red heifer, right? But they need somebody who is very powerful, a great political figure who is very powerful to help them, okay, bring this back on an official scale all throughout the land of Israel. That is when they will turn to the Antichrist, who will be the perfect person for them to restore their long lost tradition. So he'll make this covenant with them for 7 years, as we are told, and in the middle of this covenant he will turn from their best friend to their worst enemy. He will start persecuting them, and he will stop the sacrifices, and he will desecrate the temple. Remember, now here is where we come to the person from the past. Which person do we remember who did this? Yeah, say. It's okay, say. Yes, Antiochus Epiphanes the fourth. Okay, what did he do? He set up a what? Antiochus, what did he set up?
To worship his God.
Yeah, he set up an altar. He set up a pagan altar over the altar, and he did what?
Pig.
Sacrificed, yeah, swine. And Antichrist will do the same, most likely. But he will also cause a greater abomination that causes desolation, because he will set himself up to be worshipped. Please read 2 Thessalonians 2:4. Somebody read 2 Thessalonians 2:4, and then another person read Revelation 13:11 to 15. 2 Thessalonians 2:4 and Revelation 13:11 to 15. Two different people read these. Second Thessalonians 2:4 and Revelation 13:11 to 15.
Who will have power and to be saved, and to come unto the knowledge of the truth. Second Thessalonians.
He exposes and exalts himself above
Yeah.
all that he is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God.
Yeah. So he sets himself up. Okay, the next passage, please.
Then I saw another beast coming out of the earth, and he had 2 horns like a lamb, and spoke like a dragon. And he exercised all the authority of the first beast in his presence, and caused the earth and those who dwell in it to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. He performed great signs, so that he even makes fire come down from heaven on earth in the many as would not worship the image of the beast to be killed.
Yeah, so you see here that the Antichrist sets himself up to be worshipped and he forces people to worship him in the temple. So, first 3.5 years everything will be nice. They'll think that everything is restored. And right in the middle of the 7 years of the covenant, he will turn on the Jews and deceive them and ask them to worship, force them to worship him. And all of this will continue, we are told, till the end of the 3.5 years, the second portion, even unto, what does it say? Verse 27, in the midst of the week he will cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for or with the abominable armies he will make it desolate even until the consummation, and what is determined will be poured upon the desolator. In other words, the one until the very end, until the completion of this time period. What is the time period? 7 years. At the end of this time period, what has been determined will be poured upon this one who is causing desolation. He will be brought to an end. Once he is taken off of this, sorry, yes.
The Antichrist have power to give life to an image.
Yeah, very easy. It's an image, he'll make it into a video. That's it. And even then, if it's a statue also, remember Pharaoh's magicians, what did they do? What did Pharaoh's magicians do?
That is one kind of hypnotism.
Black magic.
Mm.
Yeah, they have. Sorcery, the devil and his spirits, they have all of this kind of powers.
To give life.
Not true life, it is just an appearance. It's an illusion. Not that they create life like God does. No, not that way. Not that way. They fool people, they deceive. Their work is to deceive. It's not real life. It's an appearance of life. So all of this will continue till the end, and then once the end comes, this Antichrist figure will be taken off of the scene, and once the Antichrist figure is taken off of the scene, it brings this period of 70 years, 70 weeks of years to an end. The end of the 70 weeks. This is the framework of all prophecy. But it is then the beginning of another phase in God's plans and purposes for the world. The beginning of another phase, which we will read of later on in Daniel and then again in Revelation. So, what does all of this prophecy do for us today? What does it say to us today? How can we be benefited from all of this? The framework of all prophecy. How are we beneficiaries today? Remember the context in which Daniel was given these most important verses about prophecy in the Bible. What is the context? The larger context in which he receives this. What's the larger context? This is the third or fourth time I'm asking you today. What is the larger context in which Daniel receives this prophecy? Come on. Say it loudly, please. While praying for his people, and what in his prayer, what does he do? What does he do? He confesses, that's it, which we don't do today. People don't want to confess their sin after being caught also. People want to still hide. Very sad actually. Very sad. God wants us to confess. He confesses, then he is given something. He is told to know and understand the matter. Consider the vision, 9:23. 9:25. Know therefore and understand. So when we see prophecy fulfilled, it is one of the major proofs that the Bible is true. Remember, we are able to give pinpoint accuracy to the dates. 14th of March. Say. 14th of March, 445 BC. Exact date. What happened that day? 14th of March, 445 BC. The command to rebuild Jerusalem from Artaxerxes came. Then what happened on the 6th of April, 32 AD?
Jesus came back.
He rode into Jerusalem. So when you see prophecy is fulfilled with such accuracy, it proves that the Bible is indeed true. It is the word of God, that all of his promises will come to pass, and he is trustworthy, therefore. Isaiah 46, 9 to 11, we read that God knows the end from the beginning. Isaiah 46, 9 to 11, he knows the end from the beginning. Why does he reveal it to us? So that we may live accordingly. Okay? So suppose I show you a picture. Okay, any kind of picture if I show you, let's say you all know what are pixels, right?
Yes, sir.
Pixels.
Yes.
Unfortunately, in our phones today, the pixels are very high, so it won't show you. It doesn't make things too grainy, so I cannot illustrate it properly. But my point of trying to illustrate this is that if I show you a very pixelated image, very pixelated image, what are pixels? You know what are pixels, right? Pixels are small grains that make up an image, right? In today's, in the pictures that we look at. If I show you a highly pixelated image and I tell you this is something, you probably will not believe me initially, right? Because I'll tell you this is a car, very highly pixelated image, but you can't see the car. At what point will you start to believe it's a car? At what point will you start to believe that it's a car? As I zoom out, right? You start seeing the shape of a car and everything becomes clear. So at what point do we believe, or at what point does the world believe, or does one believe that what God says he will do? Will they wait until everything is proven in prophecy? Or will they believe while things are still unclear? Because some people say in order to believe everything has to be made 100% clear. But prophecy is still in process. All the things that God has spoken about so far have been proven with pinpoint accuracy, right? So people who wait until everything is made clear in the end will be too late for them. There will be nothing else for them because time will have run out. One needs to believe and live accordingly when? Now. Now is the time, not waiting till the end until everything is fulfilled. This encourages us to trust our God and to believe Him. See how He gave this wonderful framework of prophecy, Daniel 9:24-27. So clear, so precise. This forms the framework for all prophecy. From all of the Bible, right from Genesis to Revelation, everything fits into this framework. This is the dividing point of all prophecy and the framework of all prophecy. Okay? Any questions in this until before we move on? Any questions whatsoever? Please, before we move on. Since we finished this, we've come to the end of chapter 9. Questions, comments? Yes? Quite boring, no? It's quite boring, right? I think you are bored with God's word. It's the feeling I get. Only some are asking questions, not all. Rest are okay, let's just be done. Right? What, Pujita? Let's just be done with this. Why this suffering, pain, torture? Anyway, any questions? Again, I'm asking questions or doubts. Is it little bit clear than it was? Is the first time in your life you are reading Daniel 9:24 to 27, or you have read it before? What, brother? Have you read it before? This is the first time you read it.
But the explanation is
It's helpful. Okay. So this is very important. These 4 verses are very, very important. Okay, no questions, right?